Okay, I'm going to move on to my review now. My review is of a horror movie. It's again another horror movie. I think we've accidentally stumbled on into a horror triple threat here. And mine is the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Where do I start with this? Okay. Nightmare on Elm Street. Everyone knows that anyone who's a good horror fan anyway already knows what Nightmare on Elm Street is. You're already aware of it. Or you already know who the hell Freddy Krueger is. You know his lineage. You know everything about it. And if you're also a real horror fan, you know that the really only good Nightmare on Elm Street movie, really the best one, was the first one, with exception of the third. But from the first one to about the third, the character was kind of consistent. After that, Freddy Krueger became more of a comedian and started to do a shitload of puns, and just started to be really campy. Even in the Wes Craven's, when he tried to resave it with New Nightmare, it still passed off as campy. Now this remake is done by Platinum Dunes, basically Michael Bay's funded horror section, as it were, this horror franchise bit where Michael Bay just shoves a shitload of money into a horror remake and says, do it. So how can I describe it? I'm sad to say this movie is very dull. Very, very dull.
I do agree on this one.
Now I'm going to dissect why it's dull and why it could be better. And why it's not awful either. That's the strange bit. A movie needs to either be really good to be memorable or really bad to be memorable. If you're mediocre, that fades into obscurity, into nothingness. The only thing I can only give a proper remembrance of it is Jackie Earle Haley playing Freddy Krueger.
I was hoping that you'd say he was awesome.
He is actually the best bit in the film. The reason why he's the best bit in the film is because even though he's kind of doing a weird mix-up of Rorschach and Robert Englund's impersonation of Freddy Krueger from the first film, they meld it together and is actually done something that hasn't been able to be done in a long time. Freddy Krueger is now fucking scary again. So that is good. He's at least intimidating now. That's been so difficult for ever since after the third movie. It's been almost impossible to make Freddy Krueger intimidating.
Yeah.
Jackie Earle Haley does a fantastic job. So he basically, I kind of save him in this point. This point, he is now in a kind of protective bubble to all the negativity I'm about to say. So out the window, he's perfectly fine. The plot is kind of similar to the original first movie, to the original first film, with alterations, which the alterations are the bit that kind of annoy me. They, like in the original first film, they always said that Freddy Krueger was just a child killer. They never really emphasized the fact that he could be a child molester. In this movie, he's clearly a child molester. He is clearly the point that he's a child molester. But there's an interesting angle in this, where the point of the thinking that makes us constantly judge whether he was actually a child molester or not, because the way it was done is that he was chased down and killed by the parents, because running off the idea that he might be falsely accused of being a child molester. And he gets killed off, but it doesn't totally explain all the iconography. It doesn't totally explain the things such as the glove and the hat. It doesn't explain that, which kind of annoyed me a bit. But the interesting angle here is that right afterwards, the kids and everyone seem to almost kind of forget about Freddy Krueger and whether he was actually, well, real, or whether the fact that he actually did molest children. That's even including the witnesses of what it claimed to be the crimes. Now, this could have led to something very, very interesting. Could have led to the idea that maybe we all jumped to conclusions that this guy was that and he's out for revenge for being falsely accused. Which could have been, actually, you know what, that could have been an interesting twist. I would have liked that. But they never go with it. They never really go with it long enough to make us interested or feel like, you know what, by the end of it, we'd like no longer care. We no longer care whether he was a child molester or not. Now he's just killing people, you know? And
yeah, I remember. It was like, wasn't it like 5 minutes after they tried to prove he might have been innocent that they found out he was?
Yeah. It's like you could have really milked that. You could have actually thought that maybe it was all just accusations. Maybe the witnesses were not really witnessing what they thought they were witnessing. You know, it could have been awesome. It could have been like, do you know when all the accusations came out of Michael Jackson being a child molester? And it had so many witnesses, but they all contradicted each other and he didn't really know what it was. So you're still never 100% sure if he actually did it. I mean, that would have been awesome for Freddy Krueger if they said, like, well, we're not 100% sure if he actually did that, didn't he? It's like, we've got this, yeah, but this guy says this. And it's like, that would have been awesome, but that never goes through. Another thing that annoys me, micro naps. Micronaps makes absolutely no goddamn fucking sense. Micronaps in this movie is basically that you're still kind of awake, but because you're sleep deprived, or you're having from insomnia, your brain kind of switches off into almost a sleep-like state where Freddy Krueger can just pounce at you at any minute. Now you think, oh, that's a good idea, but no, because it's clearly just an excuse for jump scares.
Micronaps do exist, by the way. They are real. There was a getter, I don't know if you heard of this, where there was a truck, and they got a bunch of people to stand around and put their hands on the truck, and whoever could keep their hand on the truck the longest won the truck. And this went on for days and days, and people were micro-napping and falling asleep and all sorts. There was only ever one series of it, believe it or not.
Well, that makes sense. The other thing is, though, while micronaps do exist, and I understand that, it doesn't work with this film, because the idea is that you're absolutely terrified of going to sleep, because you know the moment you go to sleep, throughout the day you're more like psychologically like fucked up because you're scared witless that the moment you go to bed, Freddy Krueger's going to be there to kill you. With micronaps, it basically means that, well, it can happen now wherever. It's no longer now you have to wait and try and keep yourself awake, because heck, you suddenly just like boom, micronap, bam, bam, you're dead. You know, you could be walking down a supermarket, like in the sequence at a grocery store, where suddenly Freddy Krueger just flashes, like, ah, and like things start falling off the shelves. And it's like, no, it's just clearly an excuse for jump scares. It doesn't work in this film because it loses the point of what Freddy Krueger was, is that this will happen eventually. Not like it'll happen suddenly. It'll happen eventually. You will die eventually.
I think my most hated micronap in that is when he falls asleep while swimming.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
just
you're
falls asleep
moron?
in the middle of...
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah,
It's not.
It's not. Now I'm going to kind of wrap this up a bit. The dream sequences are not that imaginative. It's actually quite dull. You know, the deaths they're bloody, yeah, but they're not as creative as you would expect from Freddy Krueger. I mean, a lot of people are like, I think it was about 4 of the kids who end up just getting stabbed by his claw. You know, you're thinking, you're Freddy Krueger. You can manipulate time and space in Dreamland. Really go a bit more beyond than just stabbing them with your claws. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but wouldn't that make him just as campy as before if he was doing all pyrotechnics and crap?
No, here's the thing, though. I mean, look at the first one. Look at how imaginative the first one was. And how, even though it was scary, he was creative, but it wasn't campy. This one... I mean, they do reenact some famous deaths, like Tina's death. They reenact it, but it's
the pinball scene goes mental in that one.
Oh, completely insane! But it's like it just goes bing bang boom bam bish bash bang and blop, and it's like, yeah, I'm glad they kept some of the famous bits from the movie, but overall, I left feeling quite disappointed. I mean, Jackie Earle Haley made a good job at making Freddy Krueger intimidating again. Now, what I think is they could learn from this. I am actually perfectly fine if they want to do another sequel out of this, because I think they could learn from this and say, you know what? Now you got Freddy Krueger fucking scary again. Make a good one out of this now. So I say, if you are actually a genuine Nightmare on Elm Street fan, you'll go in here feeling very disappointed. If you have never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie ever, you might like it to a degree. But it's overall, for me, it was a very mediocre attempt, quite disappointing, and I would really, really like it that if they just did something a little bit more with Freddy Krueger.